In this video, we will cover how to set up Node.js to use MongoDB. First, we need to initialize our Node.js project. Now we need to install our dependencies. We'll be using Express, Mongoose, .env, body parser, and router. Now let's make a folder called configs, and inside, add a mongodb.js file. In this file, we will be configuring our MongoDB connection. Let's import the Mongoose library and the .env file. From the .env file, we will import the MongoDB URL. We will define this a bit later. We specify the database connection options, use new URL parser, and use unified topology are recommended to be set to true. We call the connection function using mongoose.connect, where we provide the database URL and database options. If the connection is successful, using .then function, we can return that the connection was successful, and otherwise, an error will be caught and returned using the catch function. And finally, we export the mongoose.connection using module.exports. Now let's create a .env file, where we will specify the MongoDB URL that will be used to connect to our Mongo database. You will have to replace the username, password, cluster, and database based on your configuration. And one additional note, if your password contains any special characters, they have to be URL encoded. I will leave a link in the video description to a website with all URL encoded symbols. Now that we set up our connection, let's create a user model that we will be using in this tutorial as an example. We import the Mongoose library and create a user schema object using the Mongoose schema function. We specify the username to be of type string and set the required and unique values to true. Since our email and passwords are also going to be sharing the same type, we can just copy and rename the username we defined previously. Now that we have a user schema, we need to create a model called user using mongoose.model. And finally, we export the user model using module.export. Create a folder called routes, and inside create a file called adduser.js. We import Express, router, and the user model we created earlier. Using the router post async function, we can set a post request using the register path to add new users. Inside this function, we create a try-catch block, and inside the try part, we create a const that will get the username, email, and password from the request body. We create a new user using the user model we imported from the modules folder. Using a waitNewUser.save function, we can save the new user to our database. If it's successful, we will get a JSON response that the user was registered successfully. And with the catch block, we can catch any errors that might have occurred. And finally, we export the router using module.exports. And now we create an app.js file that will be our main Node.js server file. We import the Express library, initiate the Express function, import body parser, the MongoDB connection file, and the adduser_route file. We specify to use port 4000. Using bodyparser.json middleware, we can parse the request body of incoming HTTP requests using JSON. Next, we specify Express to use path auth and the adduser_route, which will be used to create new users. And finally, using the app.listen function on port 4000, we start the Express server. So to test out our routes, we can install a REST client extension in VS Code and create a routes.rest file. In this file, we specify the HTTP method and the URL. We will be using content type JSON followed by the JSON string to create a new user, where we will provide the username, email, and password. We start our Express server using node app.js and wait for the MongoDB to connect. Once it's connected, we test out the route using the send request button. And success! Everything works. Thank you for sticking to the very end. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and a comment of what I should cover in the next tutorial. Peace.